Right. So I hope that we're back with you after trauma. We'll now try and get hold of Susanna. Suzanne. Uh, um, and actually, it looks as if the signal is reasonably strong this morning, I'm happy to say. Now, what we do is I'm sure that you're fascinated by watching my face and look at the screen, trying hard to. We go to New York, and we hope that everything will work out for the best. Dear me. All right. Where were we when we were so rudely interrupted? I think that we had reviewed the papers where G7 are meeting, and it may be worthwhile because it is some time since G7 hit the headlines, and I think that we what we should explain is G7 is the group of 7 most advanced economic countries I say the Western world, the open market. Um, yes, okay. I'm reading stuff at the same time as I'm broadcasting to you, so you just have to forgive me for that. The G7 is I think the nations that make it up are Japan. Japan, the United States, Canada, France, Germany, ourselves, and one other, and I can't remember which one it is. It might be something like Italy, in terms of the membership, but they meet every so often to try and dictate global policy, which they can all subscribe, and so they are meeting at the moment, or did on the weekend, and that is the reason that we're getting um, suggestions that G7 would do this, that, and the other. And one of the things that G7 has said is they've started to ridicule President Putin, and President Putin is very much a macho man, a very macho man. And we, some of the people at G7 sort of said, perhaps we should take our shirts off and we can show people our own apps or whatever they're called. And I think that it is not wise to make fun of Mr. Putin. But the fact of the matter is that at the moment, I suppose that he is fair game in as much as he is not paying any attention to anybody. And indeed, why should he? He's on a course where he's virtually against the rest of the world. And paying attention to anybody else is... I remember what I was going to do now, because we showed just before we had to go and break and hopefully come back and find you again, is that I showed the Brewers Arms movie, and in it there was reference to Paul, who was the chef and who sadly passed away. But I thought he was a very popular character. His food was absolutely superb. He was actually married to Kathy, who is one of the owners of the pub. And he passed on a bit suddenly, a bit unexpectedly. Yes, Suzanne, if you can hear, try to use the latest one that I sent. It can all be a bit of fun. It's getting transatlantic each day. I suppose I can. Well, we mustn't bore you with the technicality of this thing. We'll hope that it just works the way it should. A very fine man, and I have to say that the Brewers have tried very hard to keep the team together that worked under him to make sure that the standard of food and cooking is the highest standard, and indeed it normally is. And there's a little, and there we are. Right. Aha! Fighting technology. Together we are powerful.
Finally, it's so good to see you. So good to be part of it.
How are you, Suzanne?
I am okay. I have Chicago behind me in this time, but.
Aha! Now, is that where you are?
No, I'm in New York. I'm back in New York. I was Chicago last week, but I had a great time. I actually went to a lecture with Obama. I was about 50 feet away from President Obama, so that was
all right.
Yeah.
It is, I often say that I interviewed the late Indira Gandhi, and when she walked into the room, I understood what the feeling of I've forgotten what the word is for it, but it is the powerful personality. It floods over you. It takes you. Charisma, I think, is the charisma. Did you get the same feeling with Obama?
It's funny. He definitely has sort of a presence about him, but he's quite down to earth and has a really dry sense of humor. So those things put together made him made him feel more approachable. But I was expecting this kind of larger than life kind of thing, but that's not really how he presented himself. So, but it was terrific. There was 8,000 people in the room. Everyone was
8,000 to see
8,000. Yeah, my biggest group since this whole COVID pandemic. So I was there. So it was terrific. And he spoke about, it was the same day that, the decision came down from the Supreme Court. So
yeah. Well, we'll ask you about that in a little while.
Okay.
But this was your conference, as it were. Is an architectural conference or building conference?
Yeah. It's the American Institute of Architects, and we have it every year. This was obviously one of the bigger ones again since the pandemic, and it was terrific. I went to see great architecture and saw beautiful. Went to terrific lectures. It was really great, and Chicago is gorgeous. I mean, Chicago is like ready for a party at all times.
Whenever somebody says Chicago, I keep on thinking of seeing Al Capone walk through the door.
Yeah, that's right. I don't know. It didn't feel like that either. It didn't feel like that either. That's my yeah. So it was just very. I mean, every building looked beautiful. Every I don't know. The streets look fantastic. The lake looked gorgeous. I tried to get a photo of the lake in this picture, but it wasn't cropping properly. So.
Oh well. Now, tell us about the lecture that Obama gave. What does the President of the United States, former President of the United States, say to a group of architects?
Yeah, I think we were all hoping that he would talk about obviously the decision on Friday and just what's happening in the world. And so when the first question was, what is your favorite building? We're like, oh, it's like favorite building. So, but he had a couple of interesting things to say about that. He talked a little bit about architecture. He is building a new presidential center, and he has an architect team named Todd Williams and Billy Sen are the architects. So he talked a little bit about that. They put up the renderings, but then he finally started talking about, what is happening in the United States, what is happening in the world, and what architects can do, with their kind of creative thinking and design thinking to be more responsible members in society and, really try to bring people together, because architecture brings people together, if it's done properly. So.
Well, go on, explain that a bit.
Yeah. So he talked, one of the things that he said, which I thought was interesting, was that, and you'll appreciate this, Keith, because he was saying, there was a time when everyone was basically watching the same news, regardless of your viewpoint, you were taking away your own viewpoint. Now people kind of live in their completely different worlds. He said, make no mistake about it. There are people who live in one world and live in another world, and they don't necessarily even know what the others are thinking or wanting. And so he was saying that we have to all kind of figure out what are the new non-negotiables between all camps. So for instance, what is that one thing that we can all agree on, or two things that we can all agree on, regardless of what we're hearing and thinking, and he also has a great optimism. So he thinks that there is a way to move forward. There is a way to bring the 50 United States back together again. But the role that architects can have is that, be more aware of city planning, be more aware of the role of community buildings in cities and towns, reinforcing relationships through outdoors, which are all things that, we as architects know are important. But it's good that, getting the word out that, maybe instead of your next effort in your town, maybe you build a community center so that more people can come together who think differently, so.
Yeah. Well, here, let's build a little television station.
Yes, let's build a television station that bridges the pond.
Well, the fact of the matter is we are tiny at the moment, but I just got in the latest statistics, and we are growing like hell.
Hey, that's terrific.
Yeah, I looked and I thought I've got the wrong stats. But no, we're beginning to lift off, and it's a steady growth. But over sort of a period of a year, we've actually got to something like 20 to 25,000 different people, which isn't bad for a little operation like us. And we are consistently now hitting about 2,000 or 3,000 a month. And that is only on one of our outlets, and of course we've got about 8 or 10 outlets. Right. So I was really quite pleased and delighted, and it may be that our form of broadcasting, which there's nobody else in the world doing it, perhaps it does appeal, we've hit the spot. But my challenge to you would be, you see now, is for you to design the ideal small media center that it gives the feel and the ambience to the way that we do it, as opposed to the way that everybody else does it. So there you are. There's a challenge.
All right. Challenge accepted.
All right.
I would love that. Actually, we're at the university. We're trying to figure out what our next step is for our podcast room and things like this. And all of these things really matter, because it is kind of the way to start those conversations going,
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've always been an awkward cuss when it comes to broadcasting. And when I came back from Canada, I opened up one of the very first independent radio stations in Britain. And I must say that I was very lucky in as much as the manager would listen to different things. And he apologized, because he said, look, your newsroom has got windows. And I said, well, thank God for that. I have never understood why radio stations deal in sound and then immediately seal themselves off from the world and from the world of sound. It's crazy.
Yeah.
And that was 30 years ago.
and it's still an inclination. It's funny, because we were talking about that at the university, and it's like, oh, you can't have windows. And I said, what are you talking about? Anyway, I think it's, there's this philosophy that sound, doesn't know what it's doing. Sound can still work even with hard surfaces. You can figure it out, those kinds of things. But
I was looking at the, particularly just before we moved into the White Hart Hotel. But I was looking at the history of broadcasting, and breakfast broadcasting particularly. And there are two things that struck me. First of all, when breakfast broadcasting began, it was okay. But then by accident, they had to do an outside broadcast unit. And people were stopping by and saying hello and pointing to them and so on. And suddenly, I don't know if it was ABC or NBC or whoever it was. And suddenly the whole concept of breakfast television took off. Mm-hmm. And it became an accepted form of broadcasting, because it went out onto the street.
Yeah.
Now,
exactly.
The other thing is that the most popular interview that they ever had was with a penguin.
Okay.
Yeah. It just shows, we interview people and they're very sage and they give us great advice and so on. Nobody's listening. The penguin was the best environmental thing that they ever had.
That's awesome. Well, I always believe penguins really know where it's at.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And they dress for dinner as well.
Exactly.
Okay, now you just briefly mentioned Chicago. I don't know how often you go there, but as a city, you going back and forwards, are you seeing it growing? Are you seeing it lateral? Are you seeing it changing? What's your impressions of Chicago?
Yeah, I mean, I've been there probably only 5 or so times, and it was stunning this time. I don't know if it's because of the time of the year. I was there I was there during the equinox, and so, the sunrises were incredible on the lake. And honestly, the buildings and the architecture, I mean, it has a very rich architectural history. The buildings look stunning. The city was vibrant. Of course, there was a huge conference going on, so that was nice. But as a city in general, I mean, they struggle with crime. They struggle with education as a city. And hopefully, one of the things that Obama was talking about was that his hope is that his presidential center becomes a catalyst for sort of social responsibility, community. It's actually very close to University of Chicago, where his future building is going. And I had never been to University of Chicago's campus, which is also stunning. And I went to a new building that was built there called the David Rubenstein Forum, and it's part of University of Chicago. It's a big event center and art gallery. So that's a terrific building. And that's designed by Diller and Scofidio. So there's a lot going on. Millennium Park is still a great place to go. They also have a terrific aquarium in Chicago. that I personally love. I brought the kids there when they were little. Um, that really is making major efforts about environmentalism and sustainability, and they had a couple of lectures there. So I think Chicago is poised to really recover well. But one of the problems that we have in these cities is guns, and Chicago's no different. Chicago hasn't solved it yet. So
Yes. We were talking about Seattle, and the last time I was there, I was with a bunch of journalists, and I said, "Oh, there's a great bar here where they have a sort of a pearly king and queen singing bawdy songs from the pubs in London and so on." But when I went out of the being cocky, I went out of the hotel. I turned left instead of right, and we kept on and on and on and couldn't find this damn pub. And eventually, we did find a pub, and we found our way right into the dead end. The what you call the Skid Road area.
oh no.
By this time, being journalists, we were all as thirsty as hell, and we went in. And there were all these sort of, if you'll excuse the expression, sort of deadbeats propped up against the bar and so on. But you would have thought that we were royalty. They made us feel so welcome and so on. But the reason that I remember it is that there's this chap who wanted to shake hands with everybody. And every time that he shook hands, a derringer popped out of his sleeve.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Crazy.
Gun control.
Yeah. I guess in a sense it was controlled. It was in his arm.
I doubt if you would have approved of this pub as an architect, but it gave me one of the moments that I will remember for the rest of my life. Believe me.
Oh, I don't know. I could tell my whole life story in the history of pubs. There was a pub in New York City. I won't tell you how old we were when we used to hang out there, but it was called O'Donnell's, and we would go there. I mean, they would let anybody of any age. It's not open anymore. But there was this one guy who would always end up kind of sleeping in the corner, rolled up in a rug, and so we called him the Rug Man. But there's a lot of funny pub stories.
Oh yes, absolutely. I mean, I personally nowhere near as clever as you and some of the other colleagues that I have around me, but I could have got a degree if I'd have tried hard in beer drinking. So,
yeah.
Pubs were central, and of course our documentary, "The Bloody Past of a Tiny Town," is key. It starts with me going into a pub and ends with me going into a pub.
That's right. Well, that's how you get to know the people in a city, right? That's the way.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's interesting because, for instance, London is a whole host of small towns stitched together, and how do you, when you say you get to know the people in your city, how do you get to know the people in New York? Do you just get to know the people in your area?
Oh no, I mean actually this is something we had talked about before. The neighborhoods in New York City are very welcoming. Not all of them are residential, so you can be, like the financial district is just beginning to start having actual residential buildings. But I mean, the way they get to know a neighborhood is you kind of wander around, you buy food in their neighborhood. A lot of neighborhoods are famous for certain types of cuisine and gourmet food. So you'll go to the Koreatown, you'll go to Chinatown. We do have a Little Italy where there's great restaurants. Great way it is to go to.
Oh, I remember Little Italy. I love Little Italy.
Yeah, they still have their parties, and their big San Gennaro festival is a lot of fun. And then, a lot of other areas in the city, like, the really kind of beautiful areas like the Upper East Side, the Metropolitan Museum. You can get to know an entire neighborhood just by going to the museum and meeting people there for seminars and for art shows. So there's a lot of ways to get to know a town in different.
Well, you certainly get around. There is a lady here who is a lovely lady, and her husband actually is a supporter of Mirador. But she's no spring chicken. I mean, she's in her 70s, but she gets into everything, and she's here, there, and everywhere. And I actually say to her, "You're my little blue-assed fly." Zoom, 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 zoom. And it's wonderful when people are so enthusiastic about the life around them and get involved.
I know.
Unlike me that tries to sleep 28 hours a day.
Oh, no, I know there's so much to do. It's funny. I went to, I don't know, did I tell you about this? I went to a lecture at the Metropolitan Museum. Did I tell you this? And it was this great lecture about this new architect who just got the new modern wing. And she's young. She's about 40 or so, from Mexico City. Her name is Frida Escobedo. And she had this amazing presentation. But beforehand, I met my friend who's an architect. We met at a bar that was like a couple of blocks down, this famous bar called The Mark. And while we were sitting there, like LeBron James, the famous basketball player, walked behind me. And then we met a couple of people who we're now having dinner with in like a month. So, even just neighborhoods like that, you can meet people and have some fun. So,
yeah, absolutely. Tell me, or let me say to you, if you can actually next Monday, which is the 4th of July.
Yes.
We thought that we would have a 4th of July program and get Melissa on as well.
Oh, great. Terrific.
And she's asked me to get an American flag, but I thought that we would have a little 4th of July party. So if you're prepared for that and can come up with 4th of July ideas and thoughts and stories, it would be great. So, and particularly then, of course, we would be celebrating the 4th of July in the White Hart Hotel, who actually, according to legend, thought up the United States.
All right. That sounds terrific. And I'll send you some videos of our fantastic fireworks.
So, oh, yeah. Terrific.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. So next Monday is the 4th of July. I know that it's a holiday and you'll want to get out with the family, but if you can spend a little bit of time with us so that we can, and with Melissa, and we'll have a little bit of a whoop-de-doo.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love it. My kids aren't up at 4 o'clock in the morning, so there's still time to time to be with them.
Yeah. We'll forgive the kids.
Yeah, they won't join.
Now, turning to our serious side, because one of the things that has occurred this past weekend, and I think probably is occurring today again, is a meeting of G7. I mean, particularly since you were listening to Obama, that the G7, of course, is the leaders of the, quote, free world, the 7 most powerful economic countries in the world, with the exception of China and the United States. The United States was a member once when it was G8, but it's gone reverted to G7 again. First of all, how aware the American public of G7 and its importance?
I say not so aware. I mean, it depends obviously where you are in the United States. I don't, and there's definitely. I mean, this is no secret. There's a movement in many parts of the United States to become isolationist, and so the viewpoints of other countries are not really paramount to a lot of people here. So, but I'm aware of it and certainly know that it's happening, and I'm always thinking, what is the rest of the world thinking, when we do these crazy things, and I still, Friday was just such a strange moment. And to be at the heels of a decision that was made on Thursday by the Supreme Court, it's just an inconsistent sort of usage of the reading of the Constitution. It has nothing to do with guns, but has everything to do with telling women what to do about their health care. So it was quite stunning, and I can't imagine. I mean, just seeing everyone's responses. I mean, Canada's response to what happened on Friday, they're just complete shock that this has happened. So
yeah.
I mean, it's a complex issue, of course, and but the reality is that you can't force people to do something they don't want to do.
No, quite. I think. I mean, one of the things that the useful things that we do as Mirador is try to bring to the attention of people who wouldn't have a clue about a lot of things. So explain that issue, the Supreme Court issue, and also the gun issue to people here who vaguely, well, yes, there's an abortion issue, and oh yes, it's a gun issue, but after that they have no comprehension of how important it is or what the thinking is behind it. Do you want to take a little few moments and tell us about both of those?
Sure. I mean, they're basically the issue. Separate from the actual issue, the real debate is the role of the federal government versus the state government in the United States. And, the formation of the United States, which we've all read about, had a lot to do with giving certain levels of power to the states so that there wasn't this looming federal government always determining everything, because there's always a danger of authoritarianism and sort of edicts that control people that may not be reflective of the actual location. Because we've also talked together about how huge the United States is and how different every area is. So
right.
On Thursday, the Supreme Court, which is, I think everyone knows that we have three branches of government. We have the legislative, which is the Congress, which is Senate and the House of Representatives. And then we have our judicial branch, which consists of the Supreme Court, and then all the lower courts below that, and then the executive branch, which is the President of the United States and the Cabinet. So the judicial branch, the Supreme Court, reads cases. They choose to take cases. They turn down cases. They took a case that was, saying that the New York State law against concealed carry, unless for certain reasons, was not permissible. So that means that in New York City and New York State, you couldn't carry a concealed gun, meaning that, carrying around a handgun or whatever, unless you had a specific reason for it. Now that could be that you are living in a certain area that required it, or you had a certain job that required it, those kinds of things. And the Supreme Court decided on Thursday, on the heels of all these horrible tragedies, that states did not have the right to put any limits on carrying weaponry. And the actual decision says that it's impossible to assume that if you're letting someone have a gun that they're not going to carry it. And so that was the decision point, and that was written. And I mean, the United States is reeling from these deaths of these kids and deaths of underserved populations, in Buffalo, and to then be so incredibly insensitive, and also to just be so unaware of the fact that those kinds of rules, which doesn't mean that you can't own a gun. It doesn't mean you can't use a gun. It just means that under certain circumstances, it's not appropriate. That is not possible. How do you get past it? And then at the same day, Congress passed, actually it wasn't Congress, it was Senate. The Senate passed a law that starts to look at some sort of measures around gun ownership. So the inconsistency is sort of difficult to kind of comprehend, And then on Thursday, the Supreme Court had accepted a case, and it was determined that in their opinion, and what's really surprising is it was 6-3. So even Chief Justice Roberts actually voted for this as well, or agreed to it, that abortion is not a protected privacy element in the Constitution, which means that state, and so they say leave it up to the states. It's a state's decision. And so there are already multiple states in the United States that are already limiting access to abortion. But what's even sort of a little more stunning is not even just abortion, right? Because it also takes into account all the other privacy issues, which are ability to use contraception and gay marriage. And I mean, it's just hard. It's hard to believe, because we started to be a nation that started recognizing where we are in the world, that we've advanced and started to accept people. So hopefully that was a good summary. Was that a good summary?
A very good summary. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the fact of the matter is, first of all, we're always time conscious, but also, is in all the training that I've done over the years, and I'm sure that you're aware of this, is the KISS principle. Keep it simple, stupid.
Was that good? Did I do okay?
Absolutely. I think that we forget and we get carried away because we do have expertise. And we tend to use terms and examples that really are over the heads of many viewers. So no, you're excellent, absolutely excellent, and I shall get you to look at a whole host of issues from now on, so that you can explain what's going on in the United States. And actually, Suzanne, to be quite serious, is your explanation of various things. I know you must look at me and say, Keith, aren't you going to ask me anything better than that? But the simple things, like, what you do with your family, the sort of picnics that you have, and so on, it builds a picture for us of life in the United States. Because actually, we have no idea, none whatsoever, unless we've lived there or been there, no idea at all what life is like in the United States. And it's really very valuable that we start to build this image, because to me, that's part of understanding who you're dealing with. And it gets rid of, it won't get rid of, but it will ease a little international tensions. So no, 10 marks out of 5. Yes.
All right. Thank you.
Now, I want something here that I would like you to explain and to have a view on, because Boris Johnson and Joe Biden have been getting along rather well recently, but they have got a difference at the G7, and that it's Joe Biden wants to block a plan by Boris Johnson to move the world away from biofuel production and instead use the land to grow food in a way of easing the global cost of living. Now, does that mean anything to you?
I mean, it does. I didn't know that specific thing that was happening right now, but biofuels are pretty controversial as it relates to food scarcity. I mean, it's an issue. What you have in Britain, which is amazing. You have this indoor garden in the basements, and I think it was the former subways or something like that in Britain.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, in London. Yeah, I mean, that's incredible. I mean, the more we do that and able to do these hydroponic gardens, and then use land for other purposes like developing alternative fuels, I think is kind of potentially a solution. But yeah, I mean, I can imagine the two of them fighting over that.
Well, at least it's only one little thing that they are fighting over. And now, while we're talking about fuel, is of course the petrol at your pumps has just rocketed, absolutely rocketed. I was trying to remember in my days in Vancouver in the 1950s and the late 1950s and throughout the 1960s. And it seems to me that a gallon of petrol was something like 75 cents, and now you're paying $5 for it.
Yeah,
that's one hell of a rise, even in a sort of 20-year period.
Yeah, no, it's about $100 to fill a tank or so right now. So people are trying to find alternatives to driving. It was funny because the pandemic, nobody wanted to fly anymore because it was easier to drive and it was cheaper to drive. Now I'm thinking people are going to start flying again. So maybe, but flying, of course, uses fuel too. So eventually that will transfer to the cost too. So
yes, the airports are in absolute chaos here. Once again, because I'm not an economist, I don't totally understand why, and to me it raises a question: is the UK statistics show that we have got full employment. The first time in 30 years or something, we got full employment.
yeah.
But the chaos at the airport is because they can't get anybody to take a job.
Yeah.
That,
yeah. Well, I mean, full of the, yeah. Sorry.
It's a bit strange. And one commentator described it as people come for a job and they get all enthusiastic and are sent for a follow-up interview and they don't turn up.
It's such a weird job market right now. And I feel like people are, trying to find their perfect role. But I mean, when you're doing unemployment and you say that you have 3% employment, of course, that relates to the workforce. It doesn't relate to how many jobs are then unfilled, which is a separate calculation. But people are pretty selective about what they're going to do, what they're coming out of their house for. People love remote work now. People like being able to work from home and having that flexibility.
Yes.
A job at an airport is obviously not something that you can do remotely. So I think that's part of the issue. The other issue is that I really do think that we shouldn't underplay the effect of the pandemic when it comes to people relating with each other, organizational structures, knowing your role in an organization, being able to work effectively. All those things I think have to be relearned. I was at the airport this obviously this past week to get to Chicago. And I was really struck by how people don't even know how to line up anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. Same here.
Yeah.
I mean, and particularly with all due respect, as an oldie, I catch a bus, and I'm the first at the stop. Not that I expect to get on first, because I'm still an old-style gentleman, and if there are any ladies there at all, I let them on, even though there are 50 of them. But I am amazed that sort of 18 and 19-year-olds will turn up and immediately park themselves at the front of the queue.
Yeah.
The whole idea of queuing seems to have gone out through the window. And I don't know how you instill that back into youngsters. I really don't.
I don't know.
But I think that you're absolutely right about the pandemic. And once again, the sort of chat that I have socially is that particularly the English pub, is a lot of them have now gone to almost just being mini restaurants. They serve food and they discourage you from bellying up to the bar. Now, standing at the bar and talking in an English pub was one of the great social incidents in a day or a week. You went and it didn't matter who was there. You were soon having a conversation, having a go at the government or approving of the government or talking about all sorts of things. And it was a wonderful social occasion. Because of this penchant for now making sure that you're in there to eat, that has partly been destroyed. And it was a great debating society, and I wonder why or what we're going to do to replace that debating society. And don't say play bridge.
No, I do think that we will start having that come back. I have a good friend who owns a bar in New York City. It's called Mary O's. And during the pandemic, she obviously couldn't be open, right? Because everything was closed, and then bars kind of slowly reopened. And so she was using her bar. She has 6 kids. She was using her bar to make scones which she would then sell to kind of, make up the money. And then she would homeschool the 6 kids in the bar. They would all have their little spots as they were learning. And she ended up being featured of Humans of New York. She ended up making over $1 million in scones because they did a story on her. And so she's still making the scones. We all go on Sundays and help her, make scones because she's still filling orders, But what she's doing with her bar now, which, she's Irish, she's from Ireland. She has started doing kind of like, I don't know, like little seminars and little things like that start getting that same, like you're talking about, that same kind of conversation and debate going in a different way. And so I think, people will start getting used to convene. I think honestly, Keith, the problem is people are still too scared to convene. I really do. But maybe that will be the change. Maybe next time you'll go to an English pub and everybody will have like a lecture, and then everybody will start debating the lecture and making fun of the lecturer and everything.
Yeah. Well, of course, pubs traditionally have had clubs within them. I mean, there is still the Tom Paine Society, actually the Tom Paine Headstrong Club, which was the original club which debated the future of man. And the whole idea was that there is a book, and I don't know if it's a diary or whatever, but there is a book, and whoever has got the book in front of him holds sway as chairman of the meeting. And that book is still the same book that Tom Paine used, because actually, whenever he walked in, he grabbed the book. he didn't care. But that Headstrong Club still exists. And my understanding is that though they don't turn up, is that there are people like Margaret Thatcher and Henry Kissinger who actually are members of it. And it's remained that sort of at that level. So very much the debate and the Tom Paine debate is still there, and it's still in a pub. Right, strike one against our argument.
Yeah, hopefully it will all come back. But I think you're right. I mean, things are changing, and change is good. But hopefully we keep taking the good stuff from the past and reintroducing it.
Now, how much longer have you got with us, Suzanne?
Just a few more minutes.
Okay. Well, I was going to actually play our little Potter's Wheel.
Okay.
I will, because it's only a minute. That gives us a chance to pull our breath. Now that statue that you saw there in the helmet, which we've adopted as the logo for Mirador, is about 7 feet high, and I forget who the sculptor was, but it is called a piece of architecture. Now, are you okay with that, or would you say that's not architecture?
Yeah, I'm more okay with that being called architecture than low voltage cabling that runs through a building for computers. So,
right. It is quite a remarkable. It's about 7 to 8 feet high, and it is the representation of a medieval helmet. And I think I said to you last time is we've named it Sir Genry. John and Henry were in medieval times were the popular names. So we melded them. So to us, it's January. But it does mark, it is not the site of the Battle of Lewes, but the Battle of Lewes spilled over into the priory that was there because the king was holding a feast. And for some reason, Simon de Montfort found out that he was having a little party and drinking and thought, now that's a good time to have a go at him. So he attacked part of the king's troops actually in the priory. So it does stand on some part of the Battle of Lewes architecture. But the other thing is, from an architectural point of view, and I mentioned this to you before, but I don't mind mentioning things half a dozen times because we never know who's watching, is that the infrastructure, because Henry VIII and his vandal, Thomas Cromwell, pulled down the priory, but they couldn't pull down, and it's left is the foundations, the inside walls and so on, which are still there. And from time to time, I go and I actually push them, right? Here is something that is 2,000 years old, and it is firm today as it was when they built it. And I find that quite incredible, quite incredible.
Yeah, no, it's true. I mean, that's a really good thing to bring up, is that the foundations that were built at that time, I mean, they were basically built to, withstand a lot more than ours are. I mean, our buildings are designed as thin as possible to try to, reduce cost and things like that. Cost wasn't much of an issue. Materials weren't much of an issue then. So, yeah, so they were there to last and to stay and to enjoy, forever.
Absolutely. Apparently, the church of the priory was as big as some of our cathedrals and dominated the town. But one of the historical facts that I find interesting is that the priory had its own fighting men, because in the days when we didn't have a police force or whatever, is local squires and organizations would keep a number of fighting men, both as a social responsibility, but also so that nobody could knock them off the perch. And the fighting men of the priory they actually fought off the French in a very, very gallant bid. Even the French said 200 bowmen, English bowmen, tried and tested, fought off our Frenchmen. They actually only fought them off from the priory because it's on the one occasion that Lewes was actually overrun by the French and occupied. So there you go.
Huh, wow, look at
that. Now you know about St. January.
Yeah, and maybe now we know kind of the beginning of why the right to bear arms personally in the United States, where it came from, being able to.
It could be. I mean, there is a similarity, isn't there? In fact, right here, which I can't show you, but there is a fireplace. It's an old fireplace, and etched into it is the initials TP. Now, most people think that's Thomas Paine because he was here and so on, but in fact, it is from Tom Pelham, and Pelham was one of the local squires and actually built this hotel.
Oh, okay.
He built it as a house to begin with, and then it was turned into a hotel. But there is in the church a frieze of Sir Nicholas Pelham, who was a local hero, because he took his force of men and went down to the south coast to a place called Seaford, which was being attacked by the French, and fought them off. So he was something of a hero. But he also ended up in the Tower very briefly because the king sort of sent a little word to him and said, "Hey, Tom, I'm putting together an army and I'd like to use some of your fighting men." And Pelham said, "Bugger off."
Yeah. He's like, "They're mine."
The king was not amused and threw him into the tower.
Ah, yeesh. That's tough stuff, boy. Well, you know, it was a long tradition to for Masons to etch their initials or whatever their kind of insignia in the stones that they laid in the building. So it's kind of nice.
Indeed, it was. I mean, you reminded me of that, and of course, Masonism, if that's the right word, is very, very strong here.
Mhm.
There are several Masons' lodges in Lewes, and that's only a tiny little place. But my wife was approached by several occasions by Masons to say, "Look, we'd like to get Keith in. You know, could you persuade him?" And she said, "Leave it alone." Because the moment that he got through the front door, he tried to reorganize it. So a Mason I never was.
It sounds like your wife knew you very well.
Absolutely. Just one other thing about the Priory is that it is one of the failures for some reason. We do very, very good outside concerts and bonfire nights and so on and so forth. But in terms of that, it's a very nice park. But some people tried to start a candlelight supper, with entertainment and so on and so forth, to honor the Priory. And they couldn't get it off the ground. And I've never understood why, but it just shows how some things appeal to people and others don't. I'm a great Priory fan. You ask me to talk about the Priory morning, noon, and night, I'll grab your ear. I used to go down there in the very early days of Mirador. At 5 o'clock in the morning, and I would talk to the rabbits, of which there are many, and I would talk to the ghosts of the monks, of which there are also many. Only a few of us are privileged to see them. And then I would actually, using my phone, is do a broadcast from there. And I did that for many years at 5 o'clock in the morning, religiously, every morning, every summer morning, anyway. So it's got a special place in my heart for the dear old Priory.
Oh, it sounds terrific.
Okay, now you have to go.
I do.
It's been an absolute pleasure, of course, having you here. And we do learn a lot about the United States from you, stuff that we should know and don't. And I do appreciate you taking the time and indeed just describing things that your family does. But since you are my second blue-arsed fly and zip across the United States, you're able to give us, it is a big place and things do change differently. And I mean, the mere fact that you gave us a very nice assessment of Chicago, because I have no concept of Chicago at all. And now I've got a better feeling of instead of these sort of a city of tenements with machine gun carrying mobsters, it is a modern city with great architectural value. So thank you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And thanks so much for having me. And I'll see you on July 4th, and we'll have fireworks. And you know what? Maybe even though it's going to be so early in the morning, I'll have to have hot dogs and hamburgers.
Well, what a good idea. What a splendid idea. Yeah.
Okay, and maybe one of my kids will make a cameo appearance. I'll get.
Oh yes, if they can get out of bed, perhaps they will, since it's July the 4th. And
that's right. It's a holiday. I'll say you got to get
out of bed. Yes.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Lovely. Keith. Yeah, we'll talk to you. We'll see you next week.
Okay.
But probably may talk to you in the meantime. I mean, I look at me. I'm getting very excited. I really am getting excited about Mirador because, in a slow way, but it's starting to do what it set out to do. It's open door policy, and people are dropping by. And when Melissa was on last Friday, some lady poked her nose in, and I said, "Who are you?" And she said, "Oh, well, I'm just walking my dog." And Melissa said, I want to see the dog. I want to see the dog. So this lady who is about 20 years of age and lives in Lewes, but was going to Exeter University, ended up on television talking to Melissa, but so did the dog.
See, that's like, no one's doing that. Only you. Only
us. See you next week.
Awesome. All right. See ya. Take care, everybody. Bye.
Bye. Well, there we are. Suzanne Mouchot. What a lovely lady, a very talented lady, but also very perceptive. And I think that finding out what's happening in the United States is, to say the least, important to us because we really don't know. And getting a feel for it is let's see. I think what we better do. I love playing this just very quickly. Working the whole day through, trying to find lots of things not to do. We're busy going nowhere, isn't it just a crime? We'd like to be unhappy, but we never do have the time. It's not a bad, not a bad little sting, is it? But let us see whether we have, for some reason. There we go. Let us see whether we can find a nice little program here. We keep several on tap. It's just that me trying to find it is sometimes that's a bit different. Well, that's just exactly what we left. So why on earth we have got that, I have no idea. But we better go somewhere else. Right, okay, I don't want to keep you waiting. Oh, yeah, Rosie's robot waitress. Right, let's have a look at that. That's sort of fun.
This for a first. A robot has been employed as a waitress at the tea rooms and restaurants in Cobham, Surrey. She has enthralled all the customers. Her name is Teresa. She's very friendly, efficient, and they love her. She has built up a terrific fan base in the area. Take a look. Are you going to put Robot Teresa to work?
Yes, she will gonna go to the carriage to the ladies with the kids.
I am going to work now. Hello, here is your dish.
What was the experience like?
It was interesting.
Children loved it.
Yeah, the children did.
Yeah.
Freya, what did you think of the robot?
Did you find her pleasant to
Yes.
talk
Yes,
to?
very polite. Very polite.
Very
She can
polite.
actually talk.
Hello, how are you today?
It's really simple to use, which is to press any table number and choose the dish and just press start, and then she's gonna go to the table which has been selected.
I am going to work now. Hello, here is your dish. Please take it away from my tray.
Do you wanna touch the red hand so it will move now?
The red hand?
Yeah, it's on each side.
I am going back to work now.
That was an amazing experience.
Yes, definitely. Really good.
Were you expecting anything like this at all this morning?
No.
No, absolutely not.
She memorizes, she has her own base where she's always staying. She's not replacing any human being, it's just assist the person, like assist the waitress to help them. Maybe one day is gonna be our future, but at the moment like it's just for fun, for attract people, kids, and just have such a nice time here.
Hello, how are you today?
Well, there you are. That was Rosie Hayes, no relation, by the way, but a very, very fine journalist who runs her own little news agency out of somewhere near to Lewisham, I think. And she comes up with some very, very good stories. But she actually got us kicked off Facebook on one occasion. She did a terrific story on a protest in London about closure of some cycle tracks, some cycle pathways, and the way that a bicycle organization and some individuals did it was by riding nude along this cycle track. And she sent me the story, and I played it, only to have my fingers badly burned by Google or whoever it was, saying, you can't do filthy things like that. Eventually, when we took some time and persuaded them that it was just a protest and not a filthy thing, we got off with it. But Rosie knows how to tweet my tail. Okay, where are we? It is 90 minutes past 10. We just saw the robot waitress. Oh, good morning.
No, I can't stay. Just
Wait a minute. Well, come and lean over my shoulder and say goodbye. You can't pop in without your fans knowing that you are here.
I don't have fans.
You most certainly do. I saw the stats over the weekend, and I'll let you know.
Okay, listen, just listen quietly.
Right?
Ron Smith would love to do a program on Wednesday with me.
Super.
They're in the middle of a fundraising thing. So this is just right because we can do this, and we can give him the video afterwards.
Absolutely.
Brilliant! It's fantastic,
Super.
and it's a really good story.
Yeah.
Because you'll start off in Ukraine, and we'll talk how he formed the Frontline Club and what a success
Yes,
it is.
it's terrific.
Yeah, we're up there the weekend. It was wonderful. I've got a dash, Keith. I'll talk to you later.
See, he's got no time for you.
Yes, I have.
Yeah. Come,
Goodbye.
let's see your face.
Goodbye, everybody. Goodbye, everybody.
Another fine mess he's got me into.
Yeah.
Sell your line.
No, yes, you did.
That's great news. That's good news.
Very good news.
Yeah, Suzanne was just on, and she was terrific. On Friday, we had a little bit of give and take with people wandering through.
Yeah.
I think that we're having a good time And as I say, the statistics are looking very, very promising. So,
Excellent, right.
go and do whatever it is you do. Leave me, abandon your fans.
I didn't agree to be in every flip again. Actually, someone else was saying that to me, because on television and Cambridge and all the rest of it, I've become a character, not without prompting from you.
Great.
And I'm now going to go and talk to my fans in Brighton, if you don't mind,
Well,
Stanley.
if you will go to lesser places.
Okay, see you later.
That's Stuart Dolby is a big part of Mirador Television, who actually on a Wednesday co-hosts with Max. Max. Let's see. Heading Max. Sorry, Max. It's age. I forget names. Nothing personal at all. It's Max is a super young man who hosts our Wednesday program along with Stuart, and they are working very hard to get good guests to give you information. Basically, their focus is on energy and what's happening with heating costs and so on and so forth. But they'll talk about anything. But it's a good show and worthwhile you tapping in, at least for a bit of it. At least for a bit of it. So we are now at 10. I have to put my spectacles on. 10:23. We are, and we will go for another half hour. Let me catch a breath, and let's play what I call the Potter's Wheel. Well, yes. Just trying to think of where we might go next, because Mirador Television is free flow. If somebody walks in through the door at the moment, then they get collared and they come on television and they tell their story. Incidentally, we will have in the next probably a couple of weeks away yet. But Liza Page has done a whole series of interviews with a variety of people, and her programs will be shown on Mirador probably after our August break. We are going to take a little time off in August, just so that we can actually get up at 7 o'clock instead of at 6 o'clock. But nonetheless, there are lots of interesting things going on, and we try to capture them. And we know from the statistics that are fed to us by various social media that we are on the go. We are beginning to really take off, and we're delighted because it's a very easy type of television. You hear us whittering on. Sometimes you'll see things that have bored the hell out of you, but always it's there for people to walk in through the front door, sit down, and tell us what they do. And we are going to have several of Liza's programs, which are very interesting, from Holocaust victims to people with distaff ideas, and we're able to bring in different thoughts, different ideas. We're not bullying anybody into thinking anything or saying anything. So all in all, it's not bad, not bad at all, not bad at all. So perhaps I should, at this particular stage, run through the papers with you again, and let's take a look at the news as it's depicted on the front pages of the national newspapers. It is not the latest news necessarily, but it is important news. And the Guardian is, do not give ground on Ukraine, Prime Minister tells leaders. There is some move among some countries that as it becomes aware that the war in Ukraine is going to last for quite some time, is to actually be appeasing to Russia. And of course, at this stage, the appeasing would be, well, look at all the country that we've taken, the land that you've taken, is why don't you take that and shut up? No, that's not on. And Boris is gearing up to fight his corner and say, look, what we're saying is we need to get ourselves going. We need to challenge what the Russians are doing. The Eye, leaders seek suited front, a united front away from turmoil at home. The reference is to the meeting of G7. G7 are the leading nations on the face of the earth, with the exception of China and Russia. And they get together, I think it's annually, but certainly very frequently, to discuss how things are working, whether in fact it is aiming for their, what should we say, not their theory, but what they think should, and try and get a consensus on what they think should happen in the world economically. So they were working nicely together. The Financial Times, its headline is G7 aims to hurt the Russian war effort with a price cap on crude oil exports. As I said, using against countries' embargoes quite often makes the countries who are placing the embargoes sometimes as badly off, if not worse off, than the countries they're trying to support. Life in Britain is very different at the moment, and it is up to our people, our newspapers, to point some of these things out, and we try very hard to do that, be it on a local level, but we are very we approve of being able to say what you like, as long as it's not libelous, and to things that are not said on other media outlets, because we need those outlets. We need free thought. We need debate. We can't go on patting one another on the back and saying that we're doing very well, thank you very much, and then be resentful if somebody actually pricks our bubble and decides to have the ladies of the G7 nations suss out what we can do in terms of bringing these things to you. The Daily Telegraph, Biden to block the Prime Minister's answer to the food crisis. And basically, once again, it is the Americans who will have a pop at the Russians. Probably it's difficult to explain to people like ourselves, and this is where we got to try and take up the system as it is and run with it, because we are trying hard to do things to bolster freedom of speech. And it is unfortunate, but it would seem not to be the case amongst those people who are, I don't know, what should we say, the people who confront them. And we try to do a lot of that. Waffling, Metro, The Full Monty. That's a play on words from The Full Monty, a rather amusing film where boys come and start to help shoppers who are naked and who have dropped stuff all over the place. But the Metro reports quotes Boris at the G7 meeting in Seattle. We're quite right. We're quite right. We may well get visits from these people because, after all, they've got as much say as possible. The Daily Mail: Britain is $3 billion fraud capital of the world, and apparently we are in the UK. We are actually prone to giving in to some of the con things that we get either into an email or onto phones or whatever these fraudsters could get us to. And they sound more and more plausible. They've obviously done their homework. They know a little bit about us. But anyway, that is the Daily Mail. We're going to spend fraud, be known as the fraud capital of the world, but in a positive sense. And the Daily Mail is one voice in the fight against crime. It's that simple. The Daily Express is rush to cash in on homes before crash. Once again, an attempt to play on words. And what they're really saying is that the housing market has been hyperinflated, and to get a decent lifestyle, the mortgage that is held on a home can, under certain circumstances, release a mortgage or release money, cash. And the G7 leaders are not sympathetic to that. They think that those businesses which come on can easily give in and not be supportive of the G7. Mirror, true horror of NHS dentist crisis. The one thing about this is and I saw this on television this morning again, and that is that people are actually pulling out their own teeth. Can you imagine? And I can remember a great old aunt of mine who was caught living in the here. What am I saying? She was caught in the era of family split up and so on and so forth during the first war, if you like, the Crimea War. And I remember her telling me about how you would tie the offending tooth to the door handle, and then somebody would push into your face the scalding kettle, and you would rear back, and the tooth came out. God help us, we don't ever have to refer to that. But some people are saying that they're already pulling teeth out. The Star Trek is a fight mare, essentially, at airports and so on. Fights are breaking out, and normally genteel people. Genteel people are saying how much they are not prepared to have this sort of upset of everything mess that we've got to in this world. Where are we? 10:38 is the time. We're broadcasting from the White Hart Hotel in Lewis. We've had a good run for our money this morning with Suzanne Musha. And also little tucks in in the way that people will have a little natter, a little gossip. And I suppose that I am beginning to feel the fact that I was up at 5 o'clock this morning. And while I'm fine when I'm talking to Suzanne, is my mind starts to wander when I don't have anybody here to keep me on the straight of the narrow. But nevertheless, I will tell you that Suzanne Musho, she helped us talk to the NHS dentists, very few of them. And those that are, is some people that actually pulling their nightmare, their dentist stuff into a nightmare, and not very happy about it. Not very happy at all. Okay. The Star reports in its own inimitable way. Some of the never mind, I've lost my train of thought, and we should be able to find well, it doesn't look as if we've got anything stored there. No. I'm sorry about this. It's we are slowly getting better organized, and the more people that join us, the easier it becomes. But I'm sure that what you're seeing at the moment is Dear, dear, dear. Mm-hmm. Well, let's just see, because I can't fart around here any longer. Morning, Sally. And well, thank you. There's a beautiful Sally. Now we've had the two.
Dolby.
Just terrific.
Energy Matters. Mirador Television.
And this will come on Wednesday.
From the White Hart Hotel in Lewis, Energy Matters.
Oh, well, that's just the promo for it. That's taken me a bit by surprise. What else might we have that would be interesting? And I think that I don't know. Let's take a look at what we might have stored in the archives, and see whether we can. There we are. These things pop up. They're sent to Trius. We need to fiddle around a little. It's very important sometimes to know your way around these computers, and I must confess it is not one of my not one of my great abilities. Well, we're not having much luck here at all, but you just have to forgive me. Yes, yes, she said. I just wish to get one of our prayers, and I find it very difficult at the moment. I don't know why. Normally, I can come across all sorts. Well, there's absolutely nothing in that one. And keeps taking us back on the loop. Okay, it is 10:45. I think what we will do is we will say a truncated, have a truncated day. We actually didn't take a break this morning between Break and Egg and Mirador Television's affairs from the heart. So perhaps what we'll do is we will be a bit lazy and we will lop off our broadcasting rather than bore you to tears with stuff that you don't want and I'm not prepared to give you. Wouldn't even know how to start. So thank you very much all for coming into us this morning, and we look forward to being able to show you other things, lots of interesting things, particularly from Lewis or from the rest of the world, because we do make the point is we are not and in no way forgetful of where
How's this for a first? A robot has been employed as a waitress at the tea rooms and restaurants in Cobham, Surrey. She has enthralled all the customers. Her name is Teresa. She's very friendly, efficient, and they love her. She has built up a terrific fan base in the area. Take a look.
Are you going to put Robot Teresa to work now?
Yes, she will gonna go to the carriage to the ladies with the kids.
I am going to work now. Hello, here is your dish.
What was the experience like?
It was interesting.
Children loved it.
Yeah, the children did.
Yeah.
Freya, what did you think of the robot?
Did you find her pleasant to
Yes.
talk
Yes,
to?
very polite. Very polite.
Very polite to talk.
Hello, how are you today?
It's really simple to use, which is to press any table number and choose the dish and just press start, and then she's gonna go to the table which has been selected.
I am going to work now. Hello, here is your dish. Please take it away from my tray.
You wanna touch the red hand, so it will move back.
The red hand?
Yeah, it's on each
Oh.
side.
I am going back to work now.
That was an amazing experience.
Yes, definitely. Really good.
Were you expecting anything like this at all this morning?
No, absolutely not.
She memorizes, she has her own base where she's always staying. She's not replacing any human being, it's just assist the person, like assist the waitress to help them. Maybe one day it's gonna be our future, but at the moment, like, it's just for fun, for attract people, kids, and just have such a nice time here.
Hello, how are you today?
There we go. It ends a bit abruptly, but it's a good story. We must find out how Teresa is making out, and whether in fact she's as popular as people like to think artificial intelligence is going to be. Okay, I think what we'll do is we will call it a day. That's it. I think we've had enough. It's now 1850. 1850. It's 1050. I'm pulling Domanios all over the place this morning. So I think what we'll do is we will play ourselves out and say cheerio until tomorrow. Max Hurd, I remember his last name. Max Hurd will be here tomorrow with me, and we hopefully will have Fergus Wood with some more advice on wine. And we're all working up to next Monday, being July the 4th, is we will have a party, a party on our own territory, celebrating one of the great losses in UK history, and that is, of course, the 800. Right you are. If there is no more to be said, as they say or not, I think we'll say cheerio. So what we need to do now is to remember how to click this off. That what we want to do is to end the broadcast. But we want to play out on our stuff. And toodle pip. Bye bye.